Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Burnside Council. Please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who gave their lives for this country and its people. And for the opening prayer, we pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of those who reside, study, work in and visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. Now, there are lots of seats out in the foyer and the microphones and the speakers do operate in the foyer, so you will hear everything that is said out there. I welcome the members in the gallery and ask them to observe in respectful silence as the Chamber deliberates on matters that relate to the City of Burnside. There has been much written, printed and talked about regarding one particular item on tonight's agenda, and I wish to remind all elected members and members of the gallery that debates provide opportunities for elected members to express their ideas in agreement with or opposing views on motions presented. We welcome the interested gallery. We normally have 2 or 3 people. We've got lots of extra seats, but apologise that we haven't got more space. And so we welcome the interested gallery, but need to remind you that you are not to join in the debate, nor make inappropriate comments that interrupt the speaker. Be nice to each other. If that occurs, I may be forced to halt the meeting and remind you of your obligations. Should there be a fire or any other emergency, the alarm will sound and you are asked to follow directions of council staff. I need to remind all council meetings are live streamed through the City of Burnside website, and a copy of tonight's agenda is available by downloading from this website. I remind elected members of the importance of using their microphones appropriately so that those at home can hear clearly, and request all in attendance to switch their mobile phones off or onto silent. And I just remind the elected members that I'll be working from first on the buzzer to indicate who wishes to speak on the motion once we begin. Right, there are no apologies. There are no leave of absence requests. I seek a motion to confirm the minutes. Councillor Dawes moved, Councillor Carbone seconded. All those in favour? Vote is carried. Motion is carried. Deputations. As communicated by the Acting CEO, we have received a total of 6 deputations, all of which have been received within the stipulated time frame for consideration. I ask all elected members to take into account the guidance provided by the administration this afternoon with regard to questions and deputation time tonight. From the information provided at time of lodgement, I believe that from the 6 lodged, there are a total of 4 generally speaking in favour of the proposal and 2 against. As you can appreciate, a deputation is an important opportunity for community participation in the decision-making process of a council, as it allows individuals or groups in the community to personally address and engage with the council and present their opinions to the meeting. Acknowledging that the final decision-making proceedings and approval for deputations overall rests with me as the presiding member, I have considered all deputations and allowed the first 5 in order of receipt to be made. Having also taken into account the relevance and timeliness of the matters to be raised and the desirability of spreading the opportunity for residents to address the council as widely as possible. The 5 received are as follows, and you'll be called in this order. Kathy Lesky, Skate Park for Burnside. Rochelle Martin, support for a skate wheel park. Jeffrey and Luke Swan, proposed skate park Kelly Murphy, potential of a wheel park within the city, and Darlene Song, wheel park proposal. I believe all of those 5 people are present in the audience. A 6th deputation had been submitted by Mr Hugo Michel on the proposed wheel park, being submitted middle of last week. There is no explicit maximum in our current procedures, given there is only one additional request which has been submitted in advance of the cut-off, and taking into consideration the ample opportunities for parties from either side of the debate to request consideration of a deputation, Council may wish to consider allowing the additional one representation to be made for the maximum 5 minutes, the same as everybody else. We have previously heard from more than 5 deputations on an evening on other matters. I believe Mr Michel is also here this evening and has prepared to present. Yes, you may, Councillor Davey. Seconded by Councillor, I'm supposed to be using this, it doesn't matter. Okay, seconded by Councillor Davis. All those in favour? Those against? No. Carried unanimously. So, Mr Michel, you will be the 6th deputy. Right, I'll ask Kathy Lesky to come to the table. Now, Kathy has done this before, but I'll just go through this for everybody's sake. It was a long time ago. You do have 5 minutes to speak, with a warning bell at 4 minutes that you'll hear from over here on my left. In that last minute, obviously, you have to try to sum up. Please remain seated at the deputation table, as there may be questions that need to come from the floor. And so if you're happy to stay there, when I turn my microphone off, you can turn yours on, and then the timing will start when you start speaking. Just to name, first of all, please state your name and the suburb from which you live. Okay.
Kathy Lesky from Hazelwood Park. Honourable Tanami Franks MP, Your Worship, elected members, adults and youth here tonight. Skate park sports are rapidly growing sports that provide creativity. 3 out of 4 are Olympic sports. Many riders in Australia have reached elite level, and they had a local skate park to practice at. Our children don't have this opportunity. Given that there are serious issues in Australia, including in Burnside, with the overuse of screens, childhood obesity and youth depression, we must encourage and embrace these activities because they address all of these issues. There is also a serious safety issue in Burnside where there is nowhere to practice these sports but on a road or footpath. The majority of people in the survey voted for KGR because of the 4 options presented. It best meets the basic criteria for this facility, and there is space to accommodate it. 76% of people who completed the survey voted in favour of or wouldn't mind a skate park. It was good to see that the letter from the KGR Sporting Clubs Committee did not oppose the installation of a skate park in KGR. It would be a worthwhile addition to the existing sporting precinct as outlined in the letter from Honourable Vicky Chapman MP. We value and thank the input from all residents. As with any project that Council undertakes, there are challenges to overcome. No one wants a concrete jungle or to rip out trees. All skate parks in a parkland setting incorporate trees, and many don't even look like skate parks. The concept design process addresses all of the challenges. It is these people's job to work with all stakeholders, council, users and residents, to ensure a good outcome for all. There has never been a skate park built without these challenges. You have seen how 65 other councils across South Australia have overcome these challenges. It is time for councillors to act. A pump track trial would provide no relevant feedback for either residents or council and would be a waste of government resources. Spending the funds that were allocated for concept design would be a step backwards in terms of the demonstrated demand. Modern skate parks are where important local connections are made between children, youth and adults. We are ordinary families that need these ordinary facilities. Please take a macro view on this for the greater good that can be achieved for this generation and the next in this community. Future ratepayers of Burnside. Skate park is a very good long-term investment for Burnside Council. One facility supports 4 sports. A wide range of demographics would use them from 5 to 35, far more than a playground, which children over 9 say are too babyish. We have 39 playgrounds in Burnside. They are used all year round with a relatively small footprint, taking into account trees, which are important and provide shade. Every skate park is different. They are all designed according to the site and stakeholder needs. Why consider funding a skate park in another council zone? Why would ratepayers be happy about paying for this when there would still be no place for the kids to go? This idea simply does not address the issues. We urge you to move forward to option 2, the concept design, and use this opportunity to enhance your reputation as a progressive council. We need to see definite progress and a clear path forward. Let's get it done. Skate park has been on various plans for 20 years. The current one says you are innovative and creative and will implement something new, using opportunities to challenge current practice. Well, here is your opportunity, councillors. When change happens, fear is gone. We urge you to be the change tonight, for without change, there is no progress.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs Neski, please? Councillor David?
Yeah, I had 2 questions for you. Thank you very much, Kathy, for coming in. My first question was, what age group would you like to see the skate park cater to?
Skate parks normally, as I said, 5 to 35 is probably the ballpark range.
5 to 35?
Some people older, some younger.
So you need to turn his microphone back on.
Sorry.
Yep. And I just have a second question. And in terms of size, I'm sure you're well acquainted with the different types of skate parks that there are. What type of size or footprint of a skate park would you be after?
I don't have a preference.
That's okay.
Certainly not a regional size skate park, you know. I mean, we're a suburb.
Cool. That's it. Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr Leske. Now I'll call upon Rochelle Martin. Again, please, if you could just state your name and your suburb.
Rochelle Martin, I live in Wattle Park. Lord Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and the youth of Burnside, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am here to be a voice not only for my children, but for a huge number of kids I know who will benefit greatly from having a wheel park facility within the city of Burnside. A safe facility for them to be outside, to follow their passions, to develop their skills in riding, scooting and skateboarding, and to be included as an active part of our community. I have 2 boys, one who loves your typical sports, soccer, football, cricket, basketball and tennis, and he has no limitations in practicing and participating in any of these sports. Everywhere you turn in Burnside, there are football fields, cricket pitches, nets, basketball rings and multiple offerings of tennis courts that we are grateful for. My other son loves to ride. He has been able to ride a bike since he was 3. He can scoot and he's learning to skate. He loves it and he's not alone. There are no facilities in our area for my husband and I to take him to practice and socialise with others who have the same passion. No place close by for kids and parents who have the same passion to meet after school. My son, along with so many other boys, girls and families who will benefit immensely from a vote to support a wheel park tonight, are worth standing here and representing. I've seen firsthand the benefits of these unstructured leisure activities. I travel regularly to various wheel parks. All ages are utilising a space together. No set times, no coaches, no formal training, and no pressure to win. My boys started as toddlers developing coordination on balance bikes, and in the years since then, I've only witnessed positive interaction by users. Older kids have spent time teaching them skills. Young adults have waited patiently whilst they've built the courage to try the next run, and they've sat for hours watching adults ride the advanced courses. We have never felt unsafe or been witness to any antisocial behaviour. I emailed each of you the feedback from South Australian councils that actually have these facilities. It included both local and regional areas to demonstrate that the Burnside community supporting this and not asking for something that hasn't already successfully been implemented elsewhere in South Australia. I've attended meetings against the movement for the Will Park facility, and I've listened to the concerns raised. These concerns are not to be dismissed, but I'm speaking tonight to remind you that they do not represent our community as a whole. When you asked the City of Burnside, 56% of respondents were in support of a Will Park facility. Long gone are the days of the parenting approach that kids should be seen and not heard. The youth of today deserve to be heard and valued as much as everyone else who has an opinion at this meeting tonight. If a Will Park facility provides the youth of Burnside with another avenue to be outdoors and off screens, to socialise and feel confident, to be safe and off roads and off footpaths, and most importantly, to be happy, then isn't it a time for a decision for the council tonight to move forward and vote in favour of a Will Park facility? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi.
It's been seeing a lot of each other recently.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in. I had similar two questions, and it was, what age group do you think that a skate park, if you saw one in Burnside, what age group do you think it should cater for?
I would say users are only limited by their ability, and I've seen my kids be out there from the age of 3 all the way up to, on the weekend I saw it, I'm sure he would have been 55 using the BMX track in the city.
Nice. And my second question was, I'm sure you've seen a number of different skate parks around and travelled to, like you said. Mm-hmm. What type of size do you think would be suitable?
Size, exactly, I'm not sure, but having something is better than nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Piggott.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I was curious, as you currently take your son somewhere, whereabouts do you go?
I travel everywhere, but
okay.
if it's a regular occurrence, it's to the city for either the BMX tracks or the Wakefield Street skate park, the temporary skate park, and as well Victoria Park.
Right. Do you, the proposed one in West Terrace or Park 25, or is that going to be a resource, do you feel? Is that in terms of for your son going forward when they eventually build it?
Well, I don't get the opportunity to take him after school because I have to drive. I don't get the opportunity to make a quick trip on a weekend. It has to be a planned thing where we chuck the bikes and the scooters in the car and make an effort to get out there. So, yes, that facility will still be there, and yes, we may use it, but would I use it more if it was in our suburb or in our council? Definitely.
Fair enough. You'd be okay if it was in your suburb?
I would love it in my suburb. I have no issues.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any more on people wishing to ask questions here, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to Jeffrey and Luke Swan. You realise you just have the 5 minutes. How you split it is entirely up to you.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor and councillors. My name is Jeff Swan and I live in Tusmore. I'd like to speak to you how a skate park and the lack thereof impacts myself as a parent, and then my son Luke will speak to you about how it impacts him as a teenage resident in the city of Burnside. Currently, like many parents, I drive my son Luke and often his friends to skate parks all over the area. When Luke initially started skating, I was apprehensive with him at in a skate park environment. I thought they were potentially dangerous, inhabited by unsavoury people, an environment where we may be exposed to drugs and alcohol. During this period, I would always take Luke to the skate park, stay and supervise. Over the next few years, I was pleasantly surprised at the community environment that was evident at skate parks. There was a wide mix of age groups, with children from three-wheeled scooters up to mature adults skating with their own children. I saw older youths assist, encourage and support my son and other young children. Over this period, I directly experienced teamwork through assisting each other and developing new skills, encouragement of more experienced riders with the less experienced riders, participation with kids taking turns, even with different skill level, honesty with the children looking out for each other's personal belongings, responsibility for looking after their own riding equipment and personal belongings, compassion when a rider falls and they assist each other and check on welfare, courageousness, perseverance, politeness in the way I was treated and I saw others treated, kindness in loaning their tools or loaning equipment to someone who was missing something, and self-discipline. I am now happy for Luke to skate as I am as happy for him to play football, play guitar or swim at the Burnside swimming pool. Whilst I acknowledge there was always the potential for a negative element to gather in a skate park, like any community space, it is no more likely than where other people gather, like parks, swimming pools and shopping centres. Like all community spaces, control measures can be put in place to eliminate and overcome this issue with quality, thoughtful design, and a safe environment is achievable. With the City Temp skate park on Wakefield Street set to close and the new skate park being put in the western side of the city, I believe this is going to create quite an issue for travelling. Our community, like so many other which includes so many young people, needs a central space to enjoy their sport, connect with one another. Skate parks are a community hub for these young people to come together in a constructive environment.
Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity for me to come and speak to you tonight. My name is Luke Swan and I'm from Tusmore. A skate park is for multiple different activities that have wheels. Scooters, BMX, rollerbladers and skateboards, you all use them. I'm a skateboarder myself and I have been for 4 years. I began skating in late 2015 and have been loving it ever since. Skateboarding is used all around the world by kids, teenagers and adults. It's a sport for all. It is a sport like any other, but it's treated differently. It's all self-driven. You don't have a set training day or a game day. You have to get to the skate park in your own time and practice at your own will. No one is making you do this. Therefore, we are very dedicated to our sport. I remember working on my first skate trick at the front of my house. It took a very long time to land. It was becoming really frustrating doing the same thing over and over. I thought about quitting, but I kept trying. That's why skateboarding taught me one of life's most valuable lessons, to never give up. Skateboarders and other action sport athletes try the same trick over and over again without success. To fail hundreds of times in a row, but to still get up and move forward and try again, that's something that does not get taught at school. The more you practice something, the easier something will become. So the more I skateboard, the more I can progress. Over the next 2 years, I got better at skateboarding and I was going to the skate park more and more. But the more I went, the more confronting, it was very confronting having older people around me doing bigger tricks, and that was something I thought I could never do. But once I got the courage to go on my skateboard and go around the ramps doing my best, I learned that everyone there is very welcoming and encouraging to younger people, as they too want the sport to continue and thrive. This doesn't just occur for skateboarding though, it happens for all 4 action sports that go to a skate park. So in my opinion, Burnside needs a skate park because no one around here has a local place to go. I catch buses and trains to get to a skate park with my own money, but this limits the amount of time I have to skate and really puts a rushed feeling to my time. But this mainly occurs on weekends. On weekdays, I can't really get to a skate park because there is not enough time after school. When you're rushing out to get to a skate park, you're trying to beat traffic and daylight. It really upsets me at the thought of how much further I'd be in my skateboarding if I had a local skate park. To think of how many more times I could go out and practice. Without a skate park, kids and teenagers have no option but skate on the streets, which increase the risks of them, but not only the motorists on the road as well. So a skate park will not only benefit me, but also other action sport athletes around the area and around Adelaide. Thank you, and I hope a skate park will be built here soon.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dave?
Making a run of it. My first question was Luke, was it? What was the first trick you learnt?
An ollie, so just going up in the air.
Nice. And my second question follows the ones before: is what kind of age group would you be looking at in a skate park if it was built in City of Burnside Council?
An age group, I feel like it's because skateboarding is catered for all age groups. So I think it's just more about putting it in for the action sport, make it serious, because the kids are going to grow up. So like the kids are going to grow up and keep on going there. If they still live in Burnside, then they're going to want to go to a skate park, not keep driving.
Sure.
So make it for all age groups.
Sure. And my second question was, I'm sure you've been to a number of different types of skate parks.
Yes.
What type of size would you be looking at to cater for you?
Size of different varieties. So enough space where you can fit different different parts of skate parks, but not something that's so small that it gets too crowded and you can't really do much there. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you both for coming along tonight. I just need a bit of clarification. You mentioned 4 sports that are involved. Can you just clarify what the 4 sports are, or 4 different types of activities?
The 4 different types of activities is skateboarding, scootering, BMXing, which is bike riding, and rollerblading.
Thanks. And you think a facility could incorporate all of those?
Definitely, 100%.
And they'd all work together?
Yes.
Right. And what about the different age groups that, someone has mentioned, or I think you did, you mentioned that there were people care for each other, and it's not competitive at all?
It's not competitive at all. The only representation of it being competitive is if you're with a friend and you want to try and, have a, game of skate where you try and do better tricks than each other. But no, it's 100%. It's all friendly, and like the people who are, if they see someone come and they're doing a trick wrong, or they're going down the wrong path of trying a trick, they will usually come and help you, put you on the right path, because there's not really any skate lessons around. It's more learning off other people at the skate park. It's such a good community around the place.
Thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Good evening, Jeffrey and Luke. Thank you. Quick question. What's your favourite skate park around Adelaide, and what is that? What type of skate park is it? Is it the bowl type, or... Thank you.
Most favourite skate park is, for me, it's mainly ramps, but also a bit of everything, really. Like, you've got skate parks like the West Beach skate park. That's a huge skate park, and it's got lots of different things. So I think it's something just to cater for all regions of that.
Councillor Hughes. Oh, sorry. It's Councillor Jones.
Cool. Thank you for coming in.
Then Councillor Hughes.
Burnside paid for half of the skate park in Ridge Park in Myrtle Bank. Do you use that?
Where is it again?
Ridge Bowls.
Oh, Ridge Bowls. I have used that before, yes, but like the ramps, it's such a limited skate park. The bowls are so big that kids from 5 to even 15 are scared to go to the edge of that. And the ledge is there. It's not really a place for it's kind of a place that can only be used by a certain level of skateboarding, a certain skill of skateboarding, or even scootering and BMX and rollerblading. I think skateboarding and scootering being the slightly easier to start would be more likely to use that, but the rollerblading and the BMX is they're just too scared. Like it's much harder for them, but there's only so much you can do there. There's not much of variety there. So I would say it's not a popular skate park compared to some around.
Now Councillor Hughes.
Thank you both for coming in. I'm just wondering, in terms of the various locations that you've been for skate parks, what makes an ideal location?
An ideal location is to have like nice nature, so like nice trees, like grassed area, good seating, but also in a place that has a bus stop, so you can get, if you want to, because one thing we do a lot when we get older to our teenage years is we go to a skate park, we go there for an hour, 2 hours, however long we have, and then we might catch a bus to somewhere else. And that can be, that probably won't be used as much for us, but other people from the western side of the town could catch a bus up there. They're right in front of it. Like, at Oaklands Park, there's a bus stop right in front of it, and there's multiple bus stops around that area. So somewhere where it's central in Burnside, not somewhere tucked away where not many people will find it. That's what I find would be most ideal.
Well done. Thank you very much for coming in. You've done a great job.
Councillor Piggott.
Yeah, look, Again to Luke. Sorry, Jeffrey. Thank you for coming in as well. Thank you for bringing in.
You've done a good job.
You're such a rich vein of information, and you may not. This may be something you can't answer, but in the report we've got talks about a pump park, sort of a temporary one to. And I'm not sure how familiar, or if you are familiar with that. You familiar with that?
Yes.
That concept? Yeah. Well, my question to you is, would you use that?
Absolutely not. That's something that probably people past 6 or 7 wouldn't use.
Right.
It's a back and forth thing. You can't really do tricks there. It's more of a entertaining round around thing. It's something that I feel would be just a waste of resources and money. But it's something that can be put towards a proper skate park for all ages.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have anyone else on the screen, so you've copped the most questions, so well done, the youngest person here. Thank you very much.
Well done.
And now I'll invite Callie Murphy. Off you go.
Good evening. My name is Callie Murphy and I live in Kensington Gardens. I've been a stay-at-home mum for over 13 years and I highly value a healthy lifestyle, including lots of outdoor recreation for my family. I have 3 kids, ages 13, 8 and 5, who each own a scooter and a bike and love using them. However, I am here to oppose a wheel park being built in the city of Burnside, including and especially the proposal tonight that a pump track be put in at the Kensington Gardens Reserve. First of all, the area of the reserve and surrounding streets and houses are all part of a historic conservation zone, with the entire Kensington Gardens Reserve listed as local heritage. According to the Council's own principles of development control, this heritage reserve should be put to a use that supports the conservation of the heritage value of such a place. And in the master plan published by the Council in 2015, it explains the value of this reserve, and I quote, "The survey's question, what do you value about the reserve, showed that overwhelmingly respondents value the natural beauty along with the open space," end quote. It is incumbent on Council to preserve this historic value and amenity of the reserve. Next, we need to get a few of the number facts from the proposal straight. The proposal tonight mentions several times that there is a 56% level of support for the wheel park. However, there is only a 48% level of support within the Kensington Gardens and McGill ward, which is the lowest in the Council. Furthermore, these figures show a false positive that the report only glosses over. When the people that supported the idea of a wheel park were asked if they would still support it if it was in their street or local reserve, total support for the proposal drops to just 35%. 35%. This is the figure that needs to be kept under consideration. Burnside Council residents clearly do not want a wheel park anywhere near them, which is further shown by the fact that 96% of the people that supported it at Kensington Gardens Reserve do not live in the catchment area. These figures alone should be enough to ensure a no vote from every councillor this evening if you truly represent the people and want what is best for the area. However, in the remainder of my 5 minutes, I will briefly discuss a few reasons why the City of Burnside does not need a wheel park, and then a final note on why it is absolutely absurd to even consider Kensington Gardens Reserve as a suitable location. As I mentioned earlier, my kids love their wheels and there are many places that we currently go. As an area that is so centrally located, Burnside Council residents have the ability to easily access a variety of different wheel parks suited to various needs, ages and abilities. Within a 10-minute drive, we can get to the beginner, intermediate and advanced BMX and pump tracks at Unley, the skate park on Wakefield Street, the linear park trail along the River Torrens, Ridge Park Skate Park on Glen Osmond Road and Victoria Park. We can easily access the benefits of these spaces without having to deal with the negative consequences of having them in our local community. What exactly are the negative effects? For this, I will speak to a couple of points from the Council's own documentation. While exploring the potential for a wheel park, Council listed that the number one key requirement in it being successful would be for it to have sufficient passive surveillance. If something requires surveillance to be successful, that's because there is a high likelihood of things happening there that need to be policed. Furthermore, this same proposal details the following example, and I quote, "A wheel park in the city of Playford engaged a group of volunteers to promote volunteering, mentoring peers and running skate workshops." Sounds okay so far. Let me continue. "Since the program's inception 11 years ago, there has been a steady decline in antisocial behaviour and violence at the wheel park." End quote. So let me get this straight. Our council would consider putting in a wheel park that, according to its own report, will be a haven of antisocial behaviour and violence. We will then congratulate you on implementing strategies that will somewhat alleviate these negative consequences so that we have just a moderate level of antisocial behaviour and violence. All this where there was before none. The City of Burnside is a prestigious and highly desirable place to live. Let's not introduce and encourage this sort of behaviour in our neighbourhoods. Now, just a final point about the Kensington Gardens Reserve. And this is not to mention over 40 other concerns that were raised by 90 local residents to Councillors Pickett and Davis at an informal meeting at the reserve just 10 days ago. In a report published on the council website, tree canopy coverage in the council area is reported to have declined 10% in 5 years. What a shocking figure. The same report then says, and I quote, "The implications of ongoing declining tree coverage will be wide and varied, with substantial negative impacts on the livability, prosperity and long-term resilience of the city," end quote. If council won't even protect the amenity of our highly valued green space in this heritage location, what possible hope is there of reversing the declining tree canopy coverage, especially with the ever-increasing urban infill occurring within the city? And how many bird and animal species will be affected that rely on this reserve to thrive and survive? Burnside Council residents don't need a wheel park. Burnside Council residents don't want a wheel park. Don't let the squeaky wheel minority get the oil. Represent the people, represent the heart and soul of the area, and vote no. Just to recap, Kensington Gardens Reserve is heritage listed and any changes should be kept in keeping with the heritage value of the reserve. Only 35% support a wheel park. There are plenty of other options nearby. We don't want to invite the antisocial and violent behaviour that is so prevalent at wheel parks, and we need to preserve the green space, trees and amenity of Kensington Gardens Reserve.
Thank you, Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Ms Murphy, for coming in. Now, you made obviously a fairly clear point about violence and crime and so forth, and you referenced a wheel park in the city of Playford.
Yes.
Now, you would have to concede that the city of Playford in general does have a much higher crime rate than Burnside. So would you concede that the demographics, and it's not a true like-for-like scenario, that the demographics of people using a skate park in the city of Playford would be vastly different from the people using a skate park in Burnside?
I do agree that the demographics are definitely different, and hopefully there would be a different demographic at the park also. But the idea that the council wants it to be on major bus routes is so that people can come from all over to use the park. So I think that whilst it is built in our council for our council residents, I think it is open for other people to come for it. And if it's a great facility, which I'm sure it would be if we're doing it, then it's going to invite people from all over.
Right, I have no more questions, no one else on the screen, so thank you very much for coming in. And we have Darlene Song.
Good evening, my name is Darlene Song. I live in Kensington Gardens. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I am here tonight to strongly oppose the wheel park within my city, including and especially Kensington Garden Reserve as one of the 4 suitable sites, and dismissing the 12-month trial pump track to be putting in the reserve. There are several reasons why I think this wheel park proposal should not be going ahead at all. First, there is a big question mark around the true demand for a wheel park in the city, in Burnside. According to the local government council meeting procedure handbook, in page 16, the total number of valid petitioners from within the city of Burnside is only 64 out of 216, so that's a very low number. Number 2, currently, as many have mentioned tonight, there are already 3 established wheel parks and riding tracks. Ridge Park, the wheel park on Wakefield Road, riding tracks in East Parkland, the old Victoria Park race course. Number 3, a recent article in the Advertiser titled "Wheel Sports Put Kids at Risk." Don't take my words for it. This is some research that's been done, warning of serious head injuries from riding skateboards or bikes more than contact sports such as footy or rugby. Number 4, the council's, in the report provided by the council, the 2019 representative survey mentioned in that report concluded that the wheel park infrastructure should go ahead, citing a 56 response, but as Carly have mentioned earlier, when asked if it was to be put in or near where you live, only 35% people said yes, so that's very low. Number 5, point 25.9 of the same report mentioned that approximately 45% of people responded that they did not have any concern, and that means 55% of people have concern. So that's the number that we need to look at. Number 6, finally under this, the reason why we should not have wheel park at all, under the general point 27 around school surveys, there are 69% of those who ride bikes, scooters, skateboard, roller blades and all of those. 60% of them said they ride on footpath or road. Has anybody considered the fact that the possibility that these school children only ride to school because it's easier and faster than walking and it doesn't cost money, or requires time to spend, or requires them the time to spend waiting for a bus? I take the bus to work. It doesn't come every single minute. It takes time. Now, and then further on, point 27.7 concluded that over half of these students, 56% to be exact, state they ride daily or weekly. Now, is it daily or is it weekly? If we're talking about the weekly here, weekly is once a week, equivalent to 4 days a month and 52 days a year. So allow me to offer a different perspective. Council is proposing to build something that costs a fortune to accommodate a small group of people on the basis that they may enjoy it. They may not even use it. Maybe in 10 years, the fade's gone, rollerblade or whatever, it's not in fashion anymore, and it just stays there. So this is on the basis that they may enjoy the activities that come with these infrastructures for a few hours a day at a maximum of 52 days per week. But that very same infrastructure will affect the quality of life of those who are living around the area 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Please just do the math. The number's getting too big now. My head can't wrap around it. It's just not worth it. In the remaining time of whatever I have left, I'd like to propose that Kensington Gardens Reserve to be taken off suitable sites based on 3 points. 1, Kensington Gardens Reserve is a heritage listed park with historical conservation zone, and its whole entire thing is around natural bushland. Number 2, the Burnside City Council's principal development control state that Kensington Gardens Reserve should be used in a way that supports the conservation of heritage value. Number 3, in terms of visual context, the recent master plan does not envisage such development. I think the most important part is if we're talking about that's the 3 points, and lastly, if we're talking about using this targeting younger children and youth, please listen to them. In that survey, they wanted JB Ware Reserve. That is the most popular. Kensington Gardens Reserve is the second popular one. So if that is your target audience, listen to what they said. And in closing, I just wanted to let all of you know that when all of our friends and family who visit us, they said, we are so lucky to be living in such pristine location with such easy access to this greenery and nature. Let us keep it that way. If we are pleading it, rate-paying residents of Burnside do not need or want a wheel park. Please do not destroy the parks in our council, especially my pristine Kensington Garden Reserve. Thank you.
No questions? Councillor Piggott.
I just had one, just following up on your passionate deputation. Just a question about how often do you use Kensington Gardens Reserve and in what way?
I walk across the park to go to my bus stop. I wake up every morning, open my window, and the park is right there. It's green, and it helps mentally, honestly, and it's supported by research in a paper titled Healthy Park, Healthy People. It is published by state government, and it states that there are clear links between the natural environment and our health, and well-being, physically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually. This research shows that spending time in nature is good for us. I've noticed on the weekends that families take their young babies, seniors walk with their dogs 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I come home from work. It is as if people have a meeting there. It's a true community spirit. They let their dogs run around, and they enjoy the space. It's green. It helps.
Clearly love the park. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our final deputy is Hugo Michel. Is it Michelle or Mitchell? Michel.
Thank you to the council members and mayor for giving me the opportunity to talk tonight. My name is Hugo Michel. I live in Kensington Park. I run and own my own business, Hugo Michel Gallery, which is in Beulah Park. I have 4 children, 3 of which attend Marrickville Primary School. My youngest is due to start Kensington Garden preschool shortly. It's safe to say we're ingrained in the Burnside City Council, so I should also point out my wife is a child psychologist, also works in the City of Burnside. So we're ingrained in this council, and we wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I'm very excited to be given this opportunity to speak in support of a wheel park. As I mentioned, I'm a father of 4, and since my first child could walk, we've been taking him and our subsequent children to skate parks around Adelaide and South Australia. I also skateboard myself. In this time, we've been so heartened to see older kids being so supportive and encouraging of younger children in wheel parks, mentoring them and applauding their efforts. We've seen many other families at wheel parks, this being a family outing for others too. I understand concerns exist about antisocial behaviour, but I can reassure you that we've never witnessed this in our years of driving skate parks around Adelaide and beyond. Our experience has found that older kids and teenagers were extremely aware and courteous to younger children in the park. As has been highlighted, there is a complete lack of facility like this in Burnside Council area. There comes an age where children are not necessarily interested in the many excellent playgrounds Burnside has to offer. Furthermore, not all kids are heavily interested or involved with team sports, and we should be providing facilities that encourage them to be outdoors and active wherever possible. Less screen time. Let them skate, scoot, ride bikes rather than playing Fortnite. When skateboarding became popular in the 70s and 80s, there was an association between these activities and antisocial and delinquent behaviour. Times have changed. It's now a multi-billion-dollar industry. There are elite athletes, not delinquents. We need these facilities for talent to be identified and developed, and a place for our kids to have fun. I hear there are concerns about homes losing value and a wheel park affecting communities negatively. I would suggest the opposite. A wheel park offers another place for families to gather, strengthening relationships within the community. Instead of driving to wheel parks in other council areas, we would be able to stay in our council and have birthday parties at our skate park. More facilities for a wider range of age groups enhances the community and council area, adding to the appeal of a suburb. I would also like to point out that although I'm in Kensington Park suburb, I live 200 metres from the proposed skateboard park in Kensington Gardens, and I feel very lucky if we did get it there that it would be so close to me, so I would embrace the close proximity to my property. I've seen that the officer's report suggests buying a pump track. I feel this would be a mistake. Pump tracks are fun for kids aged 3 to 6 years old. I think it's been highlighted that there's so many great parks around here for that sort of age group that I just don't think a pump track is the right way to go. I urge you to consider more permanent and more inclusive, something more inclusive. A pump track is not a wheel park. The study for the 12-month study would be flawed. As I think you heard earlier, the kids said they wouldn't use it, so it won't really prove anything. My kids, who are all here tonight, have said they'd like a wheel park, not a pump track. So yeah, the main concern about a pump track is that you're cutting out kids aged 9 to 18 years old, which is that demographic that there's nothing to do within this council unless you're doing traditional sports. Wheel parks don't lead to antisocial behaviour, boredom does. I strongly urge all of you to vote for option 2, as this is the most inclusive and progressive option. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please? Come on, Councillor Davis.
Size, definitely. So my first question, you've heard it a couple of times now. What age group do you think that we should target any potential wheel park within the city of Burnside to?
Well, so my kids have all been at skate parks since they could walk. And so from 2 years old, they've been there. And they're at big skate parks with big kids skateboarding around. So I would say from 2 to, I think, as we've all heard tonight, anyone who's old enough and game enough to do it, then I still skateboard. I'll also say I don't love Ridge Park. I broke my arm there 2 years ago and have 2 plates in my arm. It's not a great park, and it's not very inclusive.
Sure. And the second one is in terms of size. How big a size or what comparable size? It's not a trick question, would you be after?
I think it's just more to do with planning and how that park is planned out, and if it's planned out the right way. I think size, there are great small parks and great large parks, and I think it just, something like Ridge Park, that doesn't work, and it doesn't cater for everyone. I think it's just important to build a park that does cater for everybody's needs.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I just take this opportunity to thank everybody for their respectful behaviour and respecting everybody's comments regardless of which way you believe or what you agree with or what you don't agree with. So I do thank you very much for all being a very respectful audience and gallery, and also thank all of the entities who are all very clear in their intent and their passion for whichever side they chose to be on. So we will now move on to petitions, number 7, page 9, and I need somebody to move a motion to receive that. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Seconded by Councillor Cornish. All in favour? Carried, agreed. Everybody agreed. Unanimously carried. Public question time. I do believe there is a gentleman at the back. It's similar to the deputations. If you'd like to come to the seat at the table and just say who you are and what suburb you're from, and then ask your question. You have 2 minutes in which to ask the question, and then we will attempt, either acting CEO or myself, to answer your question. If we are unable to answer your question because it requires details, data, etc., then it will be published in the minutes of the next council meeting.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for everyone for talking and for listening for what's going on at the moment. I believe this is an absolutely absurd proposal. I have attended both.
I have to ask, this is not a debate.
Sorry,
you have to ask a question.
My question then, if I'm allowed one question, is have council members seen...
Sorry, you haven't stated your name.
My name is Chris King.
And?
I'm from Kensington, I'm near Penfolds Park.
Okay.
Okay. My question is, have all of the council members seen the Campbelltown Council website on the skate park? It is a skate park that is covered in graffiti. It is absolutely absurd for the council to even be considering destroying our green parks. So I ask, my question is, can I ask every single council member to see the Campbelltown Council website images of the skate park?
That is not actually a question. That is a question of, has to be actually related specifically.
Sorry, Mayor.
It's a request.
Sorry, Mayor. I'll clarify.
That's okay. Look, I'll just let you finish. You've made a very good request, and it is up to everybody here to make that choice to look. But I would like to think that they would actually have their phones turned off at this point in time, and so they're not using this opportunity to now look at those pictures. But certainly, if they wish to or choose to, they can do so. Right. Now we move to, because there was a large crowd in here earlier, I'm not sure if there were any other people who wish to ask a question out of public question time. I tried to ask people as they arrived, so I'm going to assume the question, okay. We have two more. I'll ask the gentleman at the back over there to come forward and again state your name and what suburb of Burnside you live in, please.
My name's Samuel Neft. I live at Stonyfell, moved from Wattle Park to Stonyfell. For council members, just on the back of this gentleman here, I asked the question if you have been out and seen other facilities around the state of SA and I guess Greater Adelaide more so, and your views on those facilities.
Yeah, I'm going to say a somewhat rhetorical answer in a similar way to the last one.
No worries.
And that is that personally, I have visited about 18 of them in both local and regional areas and driven council administration crazy with photos that I've shown. I've demonstrated pictures that I've taken. But as far as the other elected members are concerned, you have alerted them to that. And I know there have been some other people who have, via emails, alerted them to different wheel parks that exist within Adelaide. Yeah. Yes, you can't actually ask a question to, similar to the last question.
No
you can really only address the question to me or to administration directly. Okay, but thank you for asking the question. I've got one. We've got one more over here.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity for me to ask a question tonight. Sorry that I've got my phone on, only because I am a little bit nervous.
Name and suburb, please.
Name Angie King from Roseland Park. Question for all the councillors and Mayor tonight.
Again, the question has to be directed to me or to the administration.
Yes, okay. Question. How does the council verify whether respondents are Burnside residents, as it was an open survey to all of Australia? We understand that some survey has been received from interstate. And has the survey result gone through an independent audit process? And if not, how can the councillors make decision tonight on a report that may not be accurate? Thank you.
We're just seeking an answer. It's not one that I'm going to answer. Administration will answer this question.
Yep, that's fine.
Mr. Cooper will respond.
Thanks.
Through the chair, thank you for your question. When we go out with the survey, all respondents are asked to fill in their contact details, so their name, address, contact numbers, address obviously. Each one of those are independently reviewed, and if we find that any haven't been completed or they are outside of the city, then those responses are excluded from the results.
When you say it's being reviewed, what do you mean by reviewed? Do you actually check through like who's living at which address? And also, how do we know it's absolutely accurate without going through an independent audit process?
You want to answer? Here you go.
Through the chair, we don't have the resources to go through exclusively and check all of those details.
Yep.
We have done some spot checks when there have been some queries raised by elected members or the administrative staff, and that can include actually checking our council systems to make sure that those details are correct. So we do it, but it's a very small number of checks that we can actually carry out.
So I just want to repeat everyone.
That's all you can ask.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, the lady. We have, I think there's a... Has asked the same question? Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we will now move on to... All right, we will take
Angus Dougal from Roslyn Park. I was just wondering what size and what square footage you were thinking of building the skate park?
That has not been determined yet. It's still very early in the process of determining. First of all, we have to approve that we go ahead with it. And once that has been decided, one way or another, then we get to the concept and the design stage. And certainly I know that the administrative documentation that's gone out to the community has already stated that people will be consulted in that, in any design and concept, and which was the problem with the Ridge Park one that I understand, is that the users were not consulted, like building a house designed by an architect who hasn't actually asked the people who own the house how they might use the house.
The things they're 6 foot deep, they're huge.
They are. They're crazy.
It's crazy.
I do know that one well.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. We now move on to questions on notice, and everyone's been tabled the answers for those. We have no motions on notice. Questions without notice I'm not accepting because nobody's brought any forward to me at this point in time, or up until this time. Motions on notice the same. Reports of officers. Now, what I'd like to try to do is just go through and see if there are any that can be pulled, that can be withdrawn straight away and voted on.
I move that we go to 13.6 now.
Could you like to explain why?
Just in case the debate goes on for quite a while, what we're suggesting is just to go through the list just now. If there's any that don't need to be withdrawn for speaking, then we can just deal with those immediately. Then we'll move the wheel park to the start.
I'd like to move that we go to 13.6 now, because I think that depending on how long the debate is, there are other motions which will depend on that and whether we debate it or put it off to the next meeting.
I'm happy to second that. Seconded by, moved by Councillor Davis. Sorry, moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Davey. All those in favour? Those against? 1, 2, 3. Carried. Oh, we're going straight to the wheel park. We are moving now to 13.6 on page 71. And I am going to clear.
No, I'm not. It's not clearing.
I'm trying to clear it so that there's no one gets any specific.
I'm not touching it.
Okay, well, so why is it not clearing?
Turn yours off. He's turned his off. Turn it off.
Turn it off?
Turn it off.
I did.
Fastest finger first. What a good game. I do have an alternative motion. An alternative motion from the officer's recommendation. And I think I'll read it to you, just for clarity, and then I'll take my 5 minutes to try and convince you it's a good idea. Number 1, that the report be received. Number 2, that council does not consider Kensington Gardens Reserve to be a suitable location for a permanent wheel park or skate park. Number 3, that a report be presented to council on 12 November 2019, detailing the design and size of a portable pump track, a plan to conduct a trial of a portable pump track in a number of locations within the city of Burnside for a 12-month period, and possible locations to conduct a roving trial. 4 is similar to the current officer's recommendation, that the acting Chief Executive Officer formally correspond with Campbelltown City Council, the City of Norwood, Payneham and St Peters, and the City of Unley to request their consideration in committing to investigate a joint skate/wheel park project between neighbouring councils to be situated on land that is close to the relevant council areas, which could be located within either Burnside or near to Burnside, and is designated to be suitable for all age use. Can I speak to that now? Cool. In moving this is something that I don't think I haven't discussed with any member of the community, and I've been conscious of not going out to the community trying to advocate for one position or another. And I've listened to those who are against and those who are in favour of a skate park. To my mind, this motion will not make those people who are in favour happy, and it will not make those people who are against happy. But what it does set out is a potential path of a compromise, which I think, in the end, has a very good chance and has reasonable prospects of success of actually seeing both sides who are happy with an outcome. And I'll speak to that shortly. In my view, this council chamber will be very torn, and this is a divisive issue, and clearly one that this council will need to think carefully about. However, the proposal that I put to you tonight explores other options and a joint project, as well as looking at a roving trial. And I take Luke's point regarding a roving trial and its suitability, but I'll speak to that soon. In terms of point 2, I feel strongly that this council should resolve that Kensington Gardens Reserve not be a suitable location for a permanent wheel park or skate park. And I attended a community meeting which was called by a number of residents, and so did Councillor Piggott. And their biggest complaint wasn't noise, vandalism or unsavoury behaviour. The biggest complaint of residents at that meeting was a current pressure on the park from its 5 clubs, its public courts, its current fitness operators. There's a number of businesses that operate there, its current adventure playground, and especially the kindergarten, which I understand would be situated right next to any potential wheel park. On the weekends, that reserve is triple parked, and the rugby and cricket club will pack the car park to its limit, and it could require a number of cars to move out of the way to get your own car out, and it is under significant pressure already. Secondly, the intersection on West Terrace and the Parade is one of the most dangerous intersections within our city. So dangerous, in fact, that we had to remove a right-hand turn. In recent years, there's been 10 collisions, 9 of which driver side impact, which have the highest probability of being fatal. And the third point was a loss of amenity to the park. And we heard from tonight a couple of deputies who use that park and enjoy its openness and I suppose its peaceful nature. To those people who are in favour of a skate park, I'd ask you to consider what size, and I was careful to ask you each of those deputies who are in favour of it tonight, what type of skate park would you be in favour of? And to me, a facility that does cater to an elite level, a facility that does cater to all age groups from 3 to 55, is going to need to be about 700 to 1,000 square metres in size. And that would be comparable to skate parks in the area. And you need something like that. And my suggestion to you is that given the current use of Kensington Gardens Reserve, that even if you were successful tonight, that the size of it would have to be very small, not to impact on the surrounding use, especially the kindy, which would be right next to it. And it would require a number of trees to be removed. And I think that the facility that you would get wouldn't be what you were after. Which comes to my point 4. I think that this council, and I've spoken with councillors from Campbelltown Council, and I do believe and I do understand that there is a foundation of support for a joint project between Campbelltown and Burnside. And that would give users and riders the best possible facilities that they could to cater to their demographic. Furthermore, point 3 does restrict it in terms of time, and 12 November 2019 will be the date that we come back here, and we should have an answer by that stage as to whether there is sufficient support to support a joint project. I've included Unley in there, and I think that the existing skate park there could be made and improved to cater for that varying demographic. So I understand that this is not something that anyone will walk away happy with. If you're against the skate park or if you're in favour of it, this is not something that you're going to leave here. You're going to leave with, I think, being anxious about what's going to happen next. However, I believe that it treats a path between the two arguments and it reaches a compromise that will cater to residents and it will also cater for that elite level that you're trying to see. So councillors, I cautiously seek your support tonight.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Turnbull?
I think that this is a really good way of solving a problem. It's going to be a problem for both. I've always been in favour of a wheel park in Burnside. I think we cater very well for our youth with facilities for organised sport, but we need more outlets for those who prefer to exercise differently in a less structured way. But, and I mean but, not in Kensington Gardens Reserve. It's not the place for a wheel park. At an earlier meeting when the 4 sites were proposed, I tried to get them one removed from the list but was unsuccessful. Kensington Gardens Reserve is an icon, a place where generations of people have played sports, walked, socialised their dogs, brought children and grandchildren to play in the wonderful playgrounds. And people have just sat and been thankful for a quiet spot to go to. Serenity, as Darryl said, in the castle. It is not the right place for a concrete wheel park. And with the rejuvenation of the southeast corner, with the proposed wetland, this park will be full. Having looked at the 4 venues proposed, the only one, to me, with some merit could be Penfold Park. It's underutilised, while most other parks in the Burnside area are well and truly used, and council has invested a considerable sum of money in new toilets. With many people converging to the real park, in Penfold Park, that's judging by all the signatures on the petitions, the social problems of the past may be eliminated. It's an unexplored possibility. And we hear and use the word collaborative, a buzzword, a sensible word. We're collaborating with Campbelltown Council over the McGill precinct. We're collaborating with other councils to harvest water. So why not collaborate with our neighbouring councils, Campbelltown, Norwood, Payneham, St Peters, to explore the option of wheel park near the boundaries of the 2 of them, maybe the 3 councils. It makes sense, we could share the costs, and there's no rule that a council has to be an empire, complete with one of everything. Aspects for collaboration have not been totally explored yet, but they're on the books. Councillor Davis' motion asked for consultation with 2 other councils to be brought back, and consultation about the presentation of the roving trial for a pump track. And I will support this motion. I hope that the consultation becomes a high priority issue. And so my position is yes to a wheel park, but no to a permanent wheel park in Kensington Gardens Reserve.
Councillor Carbo.
Thank you, Worship. I'll speak against this motion. This is another delay. We have been trying to get a skate park off the ground in the city of Burnside for the better part of 20 years. And here we are on the cusp of trying to get this thing off the ground. And yet again, what does council do? Another delay. This is all council does these days, is reports and delays, reports and delays. I say no more reports, no more studies. We've done it to death, no more. This council agreed to shortlist 4 possible sites out of a possible 133. This council decided that one of those 4 was going to be the site. We then allowed our independent professional staff to go out there and consult the community, okay, on a level that has not been around since the Chelsea cinema fiasco. This has been huge. We have engaged thousands of people. And the independent professional staff, through no fear and no favour, have told us that the Kensington Gardens Reserve is the best spot. So now, what are we hearing? Oh, that it's not the best spot, and we're going to go off on some weird tangent, okay, at the 11th hour to somehow form a joint venture with another council to maybe put a skate park, wheel park, in their council. Am I the only one who thinks this is just weird? Even if...
Excuse me, please, the applause is fine, but please don't make comment.
Even if this joint venture...
Excuse me, I do need you to either go and sit down outside. No, another question. No, Is the father, when these kids have a fun, if they go home night time... No, I'm sorry.
Responsible for the damage?
I'm sorry, but you cannot... If you do not stop speaking, I'll be forced to stop the meeting.
That's what it is. They can go Solomon's building, you see the
no, I'm sorry, but I've asked you to be quiet. Next time I'll actually ask you to leave. Right, thank you.
This
Now,
joint
Councillor
venture
Cabo.
proposal has so many out clauses, it's not funny. We are reliant on so many moons lining up, okay? We need their councils to agree. We need their community consultation to agree. And from what I hear from other councils, we need the federal government to stump up with a grant as well. This is doomed for disaster. It'll never get off the ground. And that's why this is just a delay tactic 101. And even if it does proceed, it still leaves us with a fundamental issue of not, even after 20 years, of not giving Burnside its own wheel park. We are one of only 3 or 4 councils in the state not to have a skate park, and here we are, still without a skate park. We'll have one in Campbelltown. How's that going to benefit the residents or the children who live in Rose Park? 20 years, enough is enough, and I will formally move a motion in a minute that we proceed with option 2, which is what the skate park community have been wanting for the last 20 years, and what this council will deliver.
Just before I ask Councillor Pickett to speak, I've just been asked by administration if the mover of the motion would change the word on 12th of November to by.
Specifically asked for on.
You want specifically on, okay.
Yeah, it's on purpose.
That's okay, it's just that administration wanted to know if they had it ready earlier, then they could. Okay. Right, Councillor Pickett.
Thank you. Oh, look, I do feel I do need to speak specifically in respect to Councillor Carbone's pitch just now, because I feel that just because it's been asked for 20 years off and on is not a valid reason to actually do it. It has been discussed for a long time, but it should be done because it's the right thing to do, not because its time has come because it's been trying for 20 years. And in reality, what the report, and I have to commend, it was mentioned earlier that a certain stat was sort of perhaps buried, well, I think the implication was that, but I actually felt that the work that's been done and the statistics and everything that we've been given was actually very comprehensive, and it did actually point out what it told us in both directions in the debate, and I think it should be. I just wanted to say that before I perhaps use it in favour of where I feel we are at.
Thank you for that. I think that's important to be stated, and I'm glad you have stated.
What the report comes out in the opinion of administration is that A, there is sufficient demand in Burnside for us to actually put one in, and then B, the best place is Kensington Gardens Reserve. Now, I feel actually and aside from the rather compelling deputations from the people talking for skate parks tonight were strong, but in actual fact the stats aren't that strong in regard to support for a skate park. At the end of the day, there is only 35% of people who would actually say, yes, we want a skate park and we are okay to have it in our local reserve. And I think that's quite compelling. It's reasonably even in terms of want it, don't want it, or support it, don't support it. But when that second question, and I think that was a fair question to ask, and it's good that it was reported, but it does show that there is a very strong concern, rightly or wrongly, about having a skate park in your neighbourhood. And when you put that to the fact that it's actually not overwhelming, we don't have 90% of people at Burnside that actually want a skate park, then I think that is something that we need to be very careful before we go down the path of actually doing, given that A, the support's not particularly high, but B, there is concern about having one in our own neighbourhood. It's very strong, and we've seen it here tonight, and that should not be ignored. Now, so I think it's a difficult issue. It has been here for 20 years. We do have skate parks around us. We've got a big one being put up on behalf of the state, or the city at least, going into the parklands. These are not hard borders. We do get to cross them to use other people's stuff. Certainly enough people use our library. It's perhaps good to get some back. So it's not really shouldn't be an issue particularly. And then what happened was that Kensington Gardens as one of the four was landed as the ideal place. But I think where that's come from is that, yes, it was the most popular, but it was one of those things where you had people voting as to where the preferred place was, when a lot of them actually didn't want it in their own backyard anyway. So Kensington Gardens has come up in the quirk of the stats as the place that everybody else pointed to. And I don't think that is actually justification necessarily that that's where it should go. And then when you look at the reasons which the deputations actually talked about tonight in regard to Kensington Gardens Reserve as to whether that is a good place to put a skate park. And we're talking here tonight about a sort of a portable pump track going somewhere. But ultimately what is wanted and needed is a large skate park. And that park is already doing the heavy lifting. It is operating for five clubs. It has got 2 playgrounds. It's got a kindergarten. It's got a war memorial. It's got a black spot in regard to traffic accidents. When we did the master plan, and the master plan did cover, skate parks were around at that point, and the master plan went forward without a skate park in it at Kensington Gardens Reserve. It does not have a skate park in it. It has other things, but not skate park. And in fact, there was a very strong push at the time to actually not do very much with Kensington Gardens Reserve. It was already operating pretty well, and in the absence of sorting out Becky's Lake, which we have progressed, to actually leave that park alone. And I think that's what we should do. We should respect that. It is not a good place. It is already doing a lot on behalf of the City of Burnside. It is in a local conservation zone, and it really is not a great spot for a skate park. I think that's where the problem is, and I think this, just to finish up, is a potential that doesn't put it in Kensington Gardens, and I'm absolutely firm that's the case, but it does at least allow us to perhaps have 12 months of some information that furthers the argument perhaps for a skate park. And so for that matter, I will support the motion.
I don't have anyone on my screen, so I'm going back to the mover of the motion. Oh, sorry, you must have...
Thank you.
For a moment there was no one on the screen. No. Now there's 2. All right, it's Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to move an amendment, if I could. So leaving number 1, but adding number 2 and moving 2, 3 and 4 to 3, 4, 5. I might need a bit of help with the precise wording, but I'd like number 2 to read that Burnside Council commits to the construction in due course of a wheel park that supports users. Sorry?
So I've just been advised that it's too big a change to the original motion. Yes. You would have to vote this motion down and then present an alternative.
Okay. Well, since I have the mic, I will share my thoughts on this. I am in favour of a wheel park in the City of Burnside. I think they are a positive thing for the community. I acknowledge the points made against, but I think on the whole, and I'm speaking as a parent of young children, as someone who's involved with the governance of Burnside Primary School and as a primary school teacher myself, the benefits of a wheel park to young people is significant. And I think it's something that we should be proceeding with. So if there is an opportunity, should this motion lose, should this motion fail, then I'd be hoping that a subsequent motion would include a commitment to move forward with that. I find it frustrating seeing the statistics that across the city there is support for a wheel park, but across every single ward there is the clear message, yeah, but I don't want it near me. And I find that upsetting at a civic level, in that we're providing these resources, we're providing this sort of infrastructure for our residents. And I think to agree that it's a good thing would mean that, okay, yeah, you agree that it's a good thing. So I find it disheartening to see the not in my backyard approach. I am happy. No, I'm not happy. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to leave it there and see how this motion turns out.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a preliminary comment. We received a number of emails, and there was one email that we all received, and this sentence was mentioned: "We will watch carefully the voting pattern of each councillor." I did not take too kindly to that comment. Only was said, only written once. It's inappropriate in a democratic society. Not listing is not indicative of this council. You know, we do make some tough calls and we have robust debates, but we make our calls based on the evidence before us. I just want to make that point up front. We've got two fears tonight. The fear of not looking after our youth and the fear of not listening to the concerns of nearby residents. We received over 50 emails, numerous phone calls for over the past 2 or 3 weeks. I have friends on both sides of the argument, and that's quite strange to me. I even have 2 members of one family on opposite sides of the debate. So it certainly caused a number of issues throughout Burnside. In my ward, which is the Burnside ward, I had only one dissenter. And I thought, well, why is that? And it follows on what Councillor Huber was just said. Burnside ward has a number of families, and perhaps that was the reason. But I think the main reason was that the 4 venues chosen for the consultation period, none of them were in the Burnside ward. It may have been a different story if, say, Newland Reserve and Erindale had been one of the 4 chosen venues. There's been lots of data that has been presented and interpreted both ways, and all deputations used different or used the same stats and argued both for and against. I do thank all the deputations, especially young Luke too, to come forward tonight. But what is the commonsensical way forward? That was what I think that Councillor Day was trying to get to. What is the commonsensical way forward? I believe there is sufficient support for a Will Park. However, I want us to test the market. I know a pump track does not cater for all age groups, but does cater for the younger age groups. And I want to see how well it's catered for. At Mellor Park at Kensington Gardens, a bad day that day, but there are a lot of kids using that facility that we have there temporarily. So it may not cover the total youth market, it may not cover you, Luke, but I think it will cover a sizable proportion of the youth market to see what stats we get back that after 12 months. George Bolton, back in 1964, put forward that can we have a pool in Hazelwood Park? I've read all the historical articles, and he had stones through the front window of his business, and he was criticised, etc., etc. Now this pool is probably one of the gems of Burnside, one of the gems of any metropolitan council. So I believe there is sufficient support for Will Park, but not enough yet. I want to be really, really convinced that there is support for it. I'm quietly optimistic that the Campbelltown Council, I know that Councillor Carbone's a bit worried by that, but I think there may be something there. I would like it to be pursued with vigour, Acting Chief Executive, and make it a high priority for the administration. I think the 12th of November was the date that we put there for that. So my 3 main points are: yes to a Will Park, not a skate park. Yes to a Will Park. Number 2, yes to testing the concept at various locations. Number 3, location, as in real estate. One of those who are against Kensington Gardens Reserve says, what about Hazelwood Park? Now, Councillor Davey would have just gone, she would have fallen off a chair when she read that. So to me it was, we don't want in Kensington Gardens, but choose another park, right? So a bit like what Councillor Huber was saying. So the location is important, and it may not be one of the 4 locations that we have had consultation at. I just don't know. But I will be supporting the motion tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, thank you, Councillor Dawes. It's a very good summary. It's very helpful. I'd like to also put on the table here that the annual community survey, I don't think we should lose sight of what the problem is. We asked our community, and 72% of them, 3/4 of our whole community, said in the annual community survey that they think it's very important to support and support and education programs for family and youth. And they talked about facilities for youth, 12 to 25 years old. 38% said maybe a skate park was the highest suggestion of 18 suggestions. And the other 35% of the feedback from the community was, let's look at having more general recreational facilities, 18%, and courses, workshops, 17% for these 12 to 25-year-olds. So we've got 38% was talking about a skate park, and another pretty much the same 35% were talking about facilities, courses, workshops. So let's go back to the problem. The problem is these youth, 12 to 25-year-olds. It's not just going to be solved with a skate park. So I think this motion, whilst it's not ideal, but I think through this motion I would see, especially item 4, would cover the exploration of the problem in greater depth. And I see possibly a slight amendment to item 3, that a report be presented to Council detailing a design of a portable pump track. I'd like that sentence perhaps to have a minor amendment to refer to the annual community survey. So I'm thinking through here and requesting an amendment, please, to item 3, that a report be presented to Council. Look, I'm just talking about one word perhaps or two.
You'll need to say what they are first.
Yes.
Before Councillor Dawes, Councillor Davis will accept.
Yep, fine, thank you. The report be presented to Council considering the 2017 ACS outcomes.
Through your worship, we can, but you've got the information within this report. So we believe you've got sufficient information to make a decision on that.
Because the intent is to... Thank you.
You happy to accept that, Councillor Turnbull? Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will flag that if this motion does not get up, I'll be moving another one. I think there's so much concern about who actually supports what in relation to a skate park or a wheel park or a pump track. I actually believe that the surveys to date are inconclusive, other than the figure of 35% of our residents who would actually support one of, and we're not sure what it actually is. What do we actually want? Do we want a full-blown skate park costing us about $1 million? Do we want a wheel park? Do we want a smaller pump track? I don't agree that we know what our community wants. I think we actually need to go out again to survey our community our actual residents and ratepayers. It'll cost us $23,700 to ask the actual question. Will they be happy to pay $1 million for a full-on skate park and give some indication of where they would like it to be? We also need to continue our negotiations with neighbouring councils. I think we've started the work to that, and that's very valuable. But I think our community survey in our ACS was actually very, very open. I think that the question was way too open, because if anyone's asked would they like a skate park in Burnside, of course they're going to say yes. If they're asked would they like a skating rink in Burnside for our young people, they're going to say yes. So I think that was very open. I think we need to invest now in a much more targeted community survey of our actual residents and ratepayers who will be paying for whatever it is decided we have. So I hope someone will support that if this motion is lost.
Councillor Hughes.
Firstly, I'd just like to start by acknowledging the amount of community participation and interest in the issue. It's a lot more challenging and confronting to be sitting here full of a room of people watching you. So I thank you for attending. I'm guessing maybe 50% of you will agree with what I've got to say and the other 50% probably won't. So for those of you that don't know, I'm a parent of 2 young children and a parent in a changing world where we need to encourage our children to be active and participate in outdoor activities. And I see the value in providing a wide range of activities for all members of our community. We've heard this evening around the underlying benefits that could be created by some of these spaces, and I thank Luke for informing us of those this evening. We've heard lots of different facts and figures and numbers, and I'm going to throw a few more at you because I'm an engineer as well in my free time. The area of Kensington Gardens is over 162,000 square metres. Assuming that a skate park facility would be in the vicinity of 750 square metres, that would make up 0.46% of the park. Now, I appreciate that there are a number of services that are used within that park at the moment. The sporting clubs take up 36% of the park based on area. And I appreciate that they're not used all of the time, but I'm guessing on a weekend you're going to have everyone there. We've heard this evening around concern that people from outside the city of Burnside will come in and use this facility. And I thank Councillor Dawes for a report that he asked for earlier in the year when he asked about sporting club participation. So I'd like to give you a few more numbers. The Kensington District Cricket Club, 47% of their members live in the city of Burnside. That ranges up, and I'm not going to give you all of them because I only have a few minutes, up to the Eastern Suburbs Junior Cricket Club, which has 76% of members living in the city of Burnside. So this is a facility and an area of space that 36% of that, we have a range of less than 50% of people from outside of the city of Burnside using that facility. So there's about 56% of the reserve free for the community purpose to be used. And I guess there's a few other things that have been mentioned this evening. Mainly the Kensington Gardens Master Plan has been mentioned, and I'll throw some more numbers at you as well. An online survey and hard copy were delivered to residents back in 2015, and council received 256 responses. A stage 2 survey was undertaken and council received 146 responses. A 2019 survey of the Will Park was undertaken, and a total, including the 800 representative survey plus the 754 community survey plus the 471 from the school members. So I'm just putting those numbers there to, I guess, make people appreciate that although there has been input into that master plan, there are a significant number of people within our community who would like to see some of these activities incorporated into the city of Burnside. I'm probably running out of time, but there are a few other strategies and policies that I've had a look at over the last few days. The recreation, it's in our strategic plan, I think it is. It talks about recreation and leisure, and it talks about creating public spaces that meet the future needs of our community and provide for a vibrant, current and inspirational opportunities which encourage participation. There's also the City of Burnside Sport and Recreation Strategy from November 2013, which lists a number of different opportunities for us to create sport and rec spaces. It talks about play spaces, and I think someone mentioned 39 playgrounds. It talks about the fact that most of these are suitable only for people under the age of 6. And it was noted in those documents back in 2013 that there are gaps in the provision of facilities for older children and young adults. And then I'll move into skateboarding and scootering, and there is a specific line item there, and it talks about the fact that this was identified and needs exploring further, as there's no obvious purpose-built facility in the area. It talks about the fact that there is a gap, and this was identified back in 2013. And I've only been on council for coming up to 10 months, but I've read a number of different documents on our website which support creating opportunities for us moving forward to support different activities within our community. And I am running out of time, so I'm just going to finish on this note. 2 meetings ago, we looked at a community space in Laurel Avenue, and Councillor Piggott quoted, "This land belongs to all of the City of Burnside, not just the residents of Linden Park." So tonight I'll take the approach of Councillor Piggott and state that this land actually belongs to all of us in the City of Burnside, not just the residents of Kensington Park. And I do appreciate that it will cause some concern to those residents living nearby, but I can assure you, having spoken with the administration, that we all will work together to find something that hopefully will be able to address everyone's concerns. Thank you.
You have a question, Councillor Carbone?
I do, Your Worship, to yourself or administration. There's been a couple of concerning comments tonight that we don't know what the community want and need more data and so forth. I just would have thought, in light of the door knocking, flyers, surveys, school visits and social media campaign, is there anything else that we could do to know what the community wants?
Through Your Worship, the answer is yes. We have done quite a substantive community consultation period, but we could always do more.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Mayor Monceau, and I apologise everyone, I am losing my voice and very sick at the moment, so I'll keep it quite short. I'm reading through our community survey, feedback, and specifically against our strategic plan. One of our areas that we have is our diverse, supportive, happy and healthy people. The lowest ranked satisfaction that this city received was our services for young residents. It was the lowest. And I actually think it's about time we spent a bit more money on our younger residents. We've just gone and spent $1.9 million on a men's shed. We spend millions of dollars a year looking after our trees and gardens in all of our parks and streets. And I think a little investment in an area or an age group of our younger residents in the City of Burnside is not unwarranted. I do think it is necessary. I understand there are absolutely utter issues with the location and fears regarding a wheel park. I'll use wheel park because there are 4 different disciplines that use even a skate park. But I'm definitely one that thinks that we should be addressing this issue and we shouldn't be, I don't know if we should be jumping into it straight away, wholeheartedly. Maybe a bit more information is needed, but I do think we definitely need one. I do agree that the Kensington Gardens Reserve could potentially host one in its size, and I do understand the local residents for and against, some 200 metres away are definitely for it. But I do think it is something that this city and its ratepayers should be investing a bit of time and money into this age group and this demographic that we need to look after.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I support Councillor Davis's motion, and having listened, I actually think it's very important we get this right. And to get this right, we can't rush. We cannot rush to an outcome. I think that it is without question that our surveys have shown that we should do more for youth, in spite of the fact that we've got a lot of sporting clubs and a lot of organisations already existing that do stuff for youth, but I'm not really sure who we're talking about here, because as we've had this debate tonight, we've been talking about 3-year-olds, then we're talking about young adults, then we're talking about older children, and then we're generically talking about youth. So one of the things I really want to know, and following Councillor Davis's, with this motion, we might have the opportunity to find out, is who actually uses these skate parks? Who are the people that use them? How often do they use them? And what do they need to look, what does our skate park, or ours in Campbelltown's, the Eastern Regional Alliance skate park, need to look like? Because I'm in the Eastwood and Glenunga ward, which is just on the other side of Glen Osmond Road. Every time I go to the post office on Glen Osmond Road, I look across the road at Ridge Park, and I have yet to see a soul in that skate facility. Now, I've heard tonight one of the reasons that we don't see a soul in that skate facility is that it's terrible. It's not for everyone. There's not much variety. It's not a park. It's not a great park, and it's not inclusive. Well, gosh, we won't be wanting to spend upwards of $1 million and have something like that, because the thing that really terrifies me more than anything else is we do spend around $1 million. We stick a huge lump of concrete in an area that's empty, and 5, 10 or 15 years from now, like Ridge Park, it'll cost more to dig it up than it does to leave it there. So what we need to do is make sure we get it right. Other people tonight have said it's a changing world and we need to look at future needs. Well, yes, it is a changing world, and yes, we do need to look at future needs. But I'm not sure that we can actually predict those very well. Anybody that predicted them 10 years ago probably would be found wrong-footed now. So let's do some more investigation. Let's look at who uses these parks. We put this out to our school children, and this is the other thing about inclusivity. We put this out to our schools here. There's one girls' school in this area that actually didn't even bother to reply because it's not applicable. Does that mean that girls that are teenagers don't use these skate parks? I'd like to know whether we're actually building something for boys only, because that matters to me. It's got to be inclusive. So more research is needed. I'm happy to support this. I hear what people are saying about the need for one of these in our areas, but let's get it right. Let's get it completely right. I don't want one of our legacies to be a huge lump of concrete in what once was beautiful open space.
Right, going back to Councillor Davis.
Look, thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you for every councillor who spoke. When I considered this motion, and it went through a number of iterations, it came to a point where I knew that every single councillor would have a problem with it, and that every single councillor here wouldn't support it 100%. I'd be happy with 45%. I also know that every single member in the gallery would also have a problem with it, of one way or another. And I think that when you consider that, and the fact is we have 3 alternative motions already considered for review. But I think when you consider that everyone walks away here not necessarily overjoyed, is that this motion provides the best compromise. To Councillor Hubel and to Councillor Hughes, I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of the large support for a wheel park. And to me, even in those consultations where I had residents speak to me and they said, there's no support here at all. I mean, up in Penfold Park, there was actually a little bit of a dispute saying, well, I support it. Say, well, I don't. And it's that bit of, there is a disconnect between two large groups of our society. What this motion is intended to do, and my hope is, and I know that you all have a problem with it in one way or another, is that I hope that you can see the path that I'm trying to forge ahead. In point 3, it sets a time frame on the 12th of November 2019 to make a decision going forward. And 4, it gives you an alternative path which I think could, which in my view, those people who support our skate park, if it was successful, say if Unley or Campbelltown or Norwood, and I don't think it's pie in the sky type of attitude there, and I can tell you I will personally work very hard, as hard as I can to ensure that that comes up, and I make that commitment to you all tonight who are in favour of it, to consider that and see if there is support there for it. But that point 4 could be an answer which makes something like Ridge Park, which is dangerous, which is unusable, into something which is usable, and alternatively, or some other joint project with Campbelltown and Norwood. So what I'm asking for is to push ahead on an uneven path in terms of making a decision where the outcome is uncertain. And to my mind, there are 30% strongly in favour, 30% strongly against, and 30 in the middle who potentially are in favour but definitely don't want it near them. And I think that before we continue along the point 3 track, or even with Councillor Carbone's option or option 2, that we should at least pursue and give every opportunity to point 4, which at the end of the day, I think that everybody could walk away happy with. But today, I don't think anybody will walk away feeling satisfied with the outcome. However, what I propose to, whether you're for or against it, and that's very important, but I think that if we can walk this path, and if there was a way to the end, we should give it the merit and give it the chance that I think it deserves. And in the end, I actually do think if we make it there, that every single person, every party, for, against, or neutral, would be happy, whatever your issue with it. So, councillors, I ask for your support for this motion, and I ask for you to walk a difficult path, and it will return to the chamber, and we will discuss it further. But I think that this is a compromise that delivers the best for the city of Burnside, and I think that is a compromise that is worth pursuing. I seek your support tonight.
Right, I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, the motion is carried. Division has been called. Those in favour, please stand. Councillor Davis, Councillor Piggott, Councillor Davey, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Lemon, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Dawes and Councillor Jones. Those against, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hubel, Councillor Carbone, and I don't get to vote. Is carried. Move to restart. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Cornish, seconded by Councillor Dawes. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Audit Committee, minutes of the Audit Committee. Do I have a mover? Councillor Jones? Thank you. Councillor Cornish, seconded. Those in favour? Carried. Airport Water Independent Review. Does anyone wish to withdraw it for discussion? Otherwise, Councillor Cornish, you're moving to accept, moving it to the officer's report as it stands. Councillor Turnbull, you're seconding. Those in favour? Carried. Minutes of the CEO Performance Appraisal Remuneration Committee. Councillor Dawes, you moving? Councillor Henschke seconding. Those in favour, raise your hands please. Thank you. Carried. 13.4 and 5, I think we leave till later because we have to go into confidential for the last one, or not? No, we don't? Okay. So we need to debate these now.
You can deal with them now.
Deal with them now. Okay. So 13.4. Now, this is where I have to go to these notes. 13.4. Just one. So 13.4, does that include something that where somebody has to leave? Yes.
You got that one?
Yeah, I've got it here, it's the same thing.
So CEO's performance review.
Yeah, oh, okay. 13.4, I need a mover. Councillor Davey, seconded Councillor Lemon.
And I
Those
have a
in
question.
favour? Oh,
I just
okay.
have a question. Can the staff advise if any of us are affected by any of these?
I'm going to as we get to it. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you very much.
They've given me the list, so
Thank you.
I will remind people when we get closer to the time.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey. Okay. Now I've got a whole lot of names on here. Jones, you have a question.
Are we voting on each one by one? Because I object to remaking two of them.
Okay, so if that's the case, what happens now?
Do you want to do it separately?
We have to do them separately. Okay, each part separately. So we're doing just confidential for the first one, which is 14.4.13. Okay, so we're moving 4.13, the CEO's performance review only. Mover? Councillor Piggott?
I'd like to move them all in their entirety. Officer's recommendation.
That's what I thought I was doing.
Then Anne would.
Yeah, there's some that are a bit more complicated because I have to leave for, and then you have to have a presiding member, so we can only do up to a certain one.
Can we do the
We can. Yeah. Okay.
So,
We can do all those.
yeah,
We can do
to
we can do up to there.
So
Okay. That's the complication, so we can do them in blocks. So the first block would be item 13.41. 65.01, 65.02, 71.02. We can do that set first. Then I have to leave the chamber for the next group, and someone will have to be the acting presiding member for that next group. So, for that one, yes, but there's some other ones that other people are affected. So
if you wanted to do the block, the mayor would have to leave the chamber to allow us to do that, and we would seek an active presiding member.
Yeah.
So
that's what I propose we do.
That's what you do.
for the whole lot? Yeah. Okay, so do you want to leave now?
Yeah, it's probably safe to do so.
Do I leave as well?
The motion is to discuss. Do you want to read out the motion and then do that?
Well, we have a mover and a seconder for the whole lot.
Which means you and I will have to.
I'll have to leave, Councillor Davey will have to leave, Councillor Davies will have to leave.
That's right. Yeah. So 3 people would have to leave.
And I'm declaring
Right now?
material conflict of interest, 73.
Pardon?
What am I declaring? Material?
Well, I have to declare both a material and an actual. It depends on.
I'll declare, I'm very confused and declare everything I have to.
It would have been easier for us to just do one group at a time.
Nah, it's alright, let's get it done. Alright, see ya.
Okay. So did we move a motion?
Yes,
We have, so we're done, moving a seconder, I leave, and now you will do the.
I can't be, I'm moving it. I'd be the one I can't do.
With the presiding member declaring a conflict, I will seek a motion from the floor for an acting presiding member, please. Councillor Dawes nominates Councillor Piggott. Councillor Piggott, do you accept?
I have the motion, don't I?
Technically, the presiding member can move the motion.
Yeah,
We learned that the other day.
No, it doesn't make sense. Yep.
Yep.
But no, thanks.
No thanks. Councillor Lemon moves.
We like his voice.
Just say no, Peter.
I think there may have been a sense of malice in that. We will need a seconder for that, please. Seconder by Councillor Hughes. All for? Against? Well done, Harvey. Come on up, Acting Presiding Member Cornish. This will be worth it.
No, it won't.
So previously, Jane and Helga did.
Yeah, so you're now,
But we might have to give Jane
Okay.
or you'll need to move a motion then.
Yeah, we'll
So Councillor Piggott's moving the motion as for everyone, and thank you for your vote of confidence, Councillor Harvey. Jones. I will say that we should nominate you next time. Do we have a seconder?
Could I want to speak to it if I can.
You want to speak to it? Thank you.
Firstly, presiding member, I was just wondering, could we all suck on helium before we speak tonight? That could be fun. Look, the reason I did this, a lot of work does go into this exercise. I did note that a councillor may have an issue with remaking. What I would suggest is, if that is the case, that we do remake them tonight, but you could bring back as a motion on notice in respect to those, and then I think we'd all be able to get our head around exactly perhaps what you're saying. I think it's very hard en masse to do that tonight, so that would be my suggestion to you if that's something you do want to do. But having said that, a lot of work has been done in regard to whether they should be remade or not. These are the remakes. The releases are more difficult to, obviously, that system doesn't work. So I feel we should vote for the officer's recommendation in one hit, as we've done, and I seek your support.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Lemon?
Yes, I agree. Completely. I agree. I got into trouble last time I said that, but I agree.
Any other speakers? Councillor Jones.
I disagree. I agree with most of them. I have an objection to remaking 6501 and 6502 because I see, having read them, I see nothing in there that is confidential, given the reams and reams of information about ERA water that has subsequently been published on the public record. And all we're doing is just keeping stuff secret, and it looks bad, and I don't see, other than the fact that the subsidiary wants to keep them secret, why we should keep them secret. And I suggest we might even be in breach of the Local Government Act, because there's no valid reason under the Act to keep this secret. So I think we should release it.
Thank you.
So I think we should vote down this motion and have a alternative motion to release everything, to remake everything except these two, which should then be released.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for your comment. Councillor Piggott, you have a question?
I do. I just, I feel that administration, I'd like to ask administration, well, not for their comment, but in terms of, Councillor Jones has just indicated he feels that we may be in breach of the Local Government Act. The question is, have you recommended remaking any of these with that being a possibility?
Thank you, Ms Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. I can see Councillor Jones's point. A couple of the items which are on there are from 2016. However, there is some pricing information in those board papers, and we have corresponded with the subsidiary, and as you mentioned, Councillor Jones, they have kept it in confidence to date, and they have requested that we keep it in confidence. Of course, when administration recommend items for release or remake, we do consider whether the subsidiaries kept it in confidence or not, and we respect their decision. However, Council is not bound to keep it in confidence. As far as the Local Government Act is, yes, there is some commercial information in there. Through the passage of time, that may not be relevant anymore, But the truth of the matter is that there is some pricing information in the board papers, which may or may not be relevant after 3 years, but it is in there.
Thank you. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Chair. If we remake these ERA ones, will that mean that information doesn't go to the reviewers, the independent peer review consultants?
Through the chair, that is not correct. So even if we have these in confidence, we will still provide the information to the independent reviewers, as we have with a lot of other confidential documents. And we've been liaising with Water, and they're aware of that as well.
I have no one else on the board. Councillor Piggott, you're happy to put the vote. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you all. I'm happy to move in accordance with the officer's recommendation for all.
Seconded by Councillor Lemon. All in favour? Unanimously carried.
I have a formal motion. Don't have to, but I have a formal motion. My formal motion is that item 13.7, Climate Change Council Actions for Adaptation and Mitigation, be adjourned to the meeting of the 24th of September 2019.
Councillor Hughes. Does anyone wish to speak on this?
You can't speak.
Oh no, it's not a full motion. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Unanimously supported. And thank you for getting to the council for getting the report by the scheduled deadline, because that report was due to be discussed, to be presented tonight. I congratulate council administration for having done it on time, but I also thank both the mover and the seconder for moving it to another meeting, or to the next meeting, because I think it's really critical. There's a huge amount of work that went into that report. It was a very, very good report, and it needed to have an opportunity to be thought about with everyone with clear heads. So I do want to thank administration and Phil particularly, because he's still over there waiting around, for all the work that's been done on that, and we hope to see some work coming out of that as well. Climate change. Okay, so the next one is 13.8, Curbside Waste and Resource Report. Do I have someone who wishes to withdraw it for discussion, or a mover?
I do, yes, please.
You wish to move it for, withdraw it for discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Piggott?
Yeah, what page are we on?
Page 185. Councillor Piggott, it's over.
I'm moving the officer's recommendation. Sorry, I'm not sure why it took me so much to...
You made me so nervous there. I'm like, what's going on?
However, I felt that it's actually not unlike the one before it, in that it's a fairly important report. And the only difference, I think, is that we actually have a number of lines of work which are explained in the report on foot in regard to waste. And so from that point of view, I don't see there's anything that we really need to sort of pull out of there and accelerate over and above what's happening anyway. So my only purpose really was the fact that it is a report of note. It should actually be raised and discussed, I think, and I did want to actually thank administration for it. I was particularly taken by the reference of putting our landfill volumes in terms of Boeing 747s. It smacks of Councillor Cornish's Big Mac index, I feel. So I think we're leading the way in creative indexes. So, and the issues are, I mean, I think well known to us. This report does highlight them. It's a matter of which one you take a crack at first. We have got work coming in regard to food waste in the red bin. There's a lot of work being done in all sorts of directions in regard to recyclables, both of which are important. And of course, there's been hardly a week goes by probably that there's not some article about, I think Adelaide City Council's discussing giving money back for people who take a smaller bin. Prospect had the East Waste workshop that talked about potentially reviewing what people put in bins and introducing penalties, which got quite an amount of media attention, and wasn't shot completely down in flames, which was interesting and of note, I think. So you really, yeah, I only wanted to pull it out to sort of give it the attention actually it deserves, and I look forward to the various bits of work to come back at the relevant time. So I move the motion.
Councillor Lemon.
Yes, I'm happy to second the officer's recommendation. I thank Councillor Piggott for his words. I agree completely, once again, that this is an excellent report and it's a really good update on where waste is tracking. I particularly want to draw attention to the tables on page 188 and 189, because I find it delights me personally that Burnside tracks so beautifully against other councils. We have less landfill going out. We have higher rate of organics going out. The only place where we look even remotely slightly not different is for our recyclables, and even there we're above, but we're sort of edging the same. Our hard waste per capita every year has gone down, and I'm very pleased to see that our annual mattress collection has gone up significantly. For me, that means when I drive through Glenside, in front of the many flats in Glenside, I'm not seeing mattresses on the footpath, so I think that's great too. So thank you very much for this report. We've got more work to do, and this is a good start.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all this information. The question I've got is, there was a flowchart showing the waste streams, and one of the waste streams was hazardous waste, and I didn't see any data on that flowchart on page 195. Can you give us an idea of the nature of the hazardous waste in the city of Burnside, please, and any volumes, trends? Thank you.
Sorry, what page was that?
Through the chair, the hazardous waste was a difficult one to include in the flowchart, but I wanted to include it because it is a waste flow from residents. It's handled through the state government, so they have hazardous waste depots. They've recently realised that they had too few opportunities for residents to get rid of hazardous waste, and so they've opened new depots, with a couple being opened closer to the city of Burnside, which is great, one in Campbelltown and one in Plympton, and another one opening in Heathfield soon. The data that was used to create the waste flow diagram is taken from national data, because there's no local data available because we don't manage it. It's managed by state government. So some data used from national figures was used and then brought down to a Burnside level based on our population. And it is an estimate, and that's outlined underneath the flow diagram where it talks about the sort of estimates and assumptions that needed to be made to create it. But it was put on there to highlight that it is a waste stream that comes from Burnside residents.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for an excellent report. It's great to see it all of our activities progress in one report, so I was very pleased to see that. I just had a couple of questions. One's about at paragraph 19 on page 191 about waste management in schools. Can you clarify to me, do they manage their waste or do we collect it for them? And do they have programs for the students to educate them about waste management and recycling?
Through the Chair, that's a very good question and something we've been looking into. There's a fair bit of ad hoc management of waste in schools, with the department being involved at a state level, with state schools, with local schools then using some department funds and some of their own funds to manage waste, and then council supplying some services to schools as well. What's been observed is that schools aren't managing their waste as well as they could be, in terms of sending too much to landfill and often not having the correct facility to send recycling and organics to the appropriate places. They are wanting to change and they're asking council for more support in that area, and discussing the matter with waste providers, it seems that it's really an area where state government and private schools should be stepping up, although the council has a really good role to play in terms of education there, and also can be a vehicle to get the schools talking together and with state government to be improving their waste management systems. So I think there's opportunities for them to improve their performance, and council can help in an advisory role, but also there is an educative role there. We support KeySAB and other education programs in schools and have done for some time through East Waste, and that's been very productive and very successful, which is one of the reasons why the schools are now asking for more support.
Through the Chair, there was actually in that War on Waste program that Craig Ricastle did some wonderful programs in schools. I don't know if you saw that and whether that wouldn't be a good template to use for perhaps some school projects.
Yeah, through the Chair, that some of those programs are happening in Burnside schools, and they're supported by the council through KeySAB and others. And that's part of the reason why the War on Waste is one of the reasons why that schools are now calling for that extra support.
Fabulous. And one final question. It involves the recycling bin. How much of a problem is textile waste? I've just heard a couple of documentaries recently and radio programs, and I hadn't realised it was quite a problem in contaminating loads full of recycling in total. Is that a big problem?
Textile waste certainly does contaminate recycling bins. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, sorry, but the organic waste contamination of landfill bins is a much larger problem relatively, so that's why the focus has been there. Textiles are recyclable and are potentially compostable, and that's another area of work, but in terms of picking the biggest issues for Burnside, currently organics is certainly the biggest one.
Okay.
Councillor Davis.
Very quickly as well, I think that I'd still like to have that conversation again. It was run across the entire state about the red bin collection periods and the green bin collection periods, and I think that discussion was very poorly managed, and I think that completely got out of control. So I'd like to ask the Minister Stepan Konolol, because we're pronouncing all of these letters now, to give me a call. And my number's on the website, so hopefully Stepan Konolol will let me know if he's up for a chat.
Councillor Cornish.
Can I just leave a minute to get over that comment? I need to get away from that comment as far as I can. I do have a question. My question revolves around certainly the contamination and the East Waste's recent sort of request for fining. The 3 strikes and you get a fine because people are doing the wrong thing. Who pays for them doing the wrong thing right now? Because clearly, you know, if a truck is completely and utterly contaminated and can't go to the recycling depot, it has to go to, the entire truck goes to landfill. Who pays for that?
Through the chair, firstly, the idea of a whole truck being contaminated and going to landfill is highly unlikely. Waste, the recycling trucks go to the recycling MRF, the materials recovery facility, where they are sorted, and there is typically a level of contamination in there, and there are processes in place to remove that contamination. Waste is then taken. Waste to landfill is then taken from the MRF to landfill, and that's demonstrated in the waste flow diagram, that while most of that goes to recycling, some of it does go to landfill. And of course, the council pays for that. So reducing that proportionally would be beneficial, although again, the bigger issue is organic matter in landfill bins and how much that costs council, which is substantially more than the contamination in recycling.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you very much for the report. Thank you for helping my e-waste the last 2 times too. Talking about e-waste, Glen Osborne has finished. We no longer have an arrangement with that firm. Have we progressed anything with any other company nearby or in Burnside to take e-waste? I know the council is doing it currently on a Monday, 4th Monday of the month and so forth.
Through the chair, you're right that Glen Osborne Recycling has stopped accepting e-waste, and we have started a service on the 4th Monday of each month. And it was hoped that we could determine the extent of the issue before making any decisions about the future of that service. We have been receiving, I would say, fairly low levels of requests for e-waste, so we're having 8 or 9 people, I think up to 15 people coming in on the Mondays.
I was one of those, yeah.
Counted twice too, I think. And understanding the issue before jumping to provide any new services would be a good thing to do. I think the reason why there are fairly low levels of requests for this service is that there are now commercial services available. For example, e-waste can be dropped at Bunnings, certain types of e-waste can be dropped at Officeworks and the like. Those sort of services weren't around 5 years ago when or historically when the deal was done with Glen Osborne Recycling to support that service. So looking forward, ideally the commercial services would increase and council would no longer need to support that because there would be plenty of opportunity for residents to correctly dispose of e-waste so that it can be recycled. And it seems that things are moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you. The second question I had for you, on page 185, the recyclables, a couple of councillors already mentioned that. My question to you is, have we bottomed out? Because that graph is fairly constant for the last 2 or 3 years as regards the amount per capita that is collected. Have you got a comment about that? You know, the last graph on page 188, is that 100? 188, thank you. So that blue line, or was it purple? I can't tell. Yeah, is fairly flat. So there hasn't been much change. Do you think is that bottoming out, or what do you think that's going to increase over time? Is it more education? What do you think?
Through the chair, I certainly don't think that it's bottomed out. There's a lot of potential for improvement, as has been highlighted by the previous waste audits, and there's more waste audits coming from East Waste soon, which will help in strategic decision making. I think there are a large proportion of the population who try and do the right thing and will sort their waste without any promotion or without any engagement, and they're probably already doing the right thing. There's another proportion of the population that are busy in their lives doing other things and aren't necessarily receptive to waste messaging, and that's the area we need to work in now to engage those people with clear messages that will help improve their waste management. and therefore that'll flow on to council saving money. So there's been extensive education programs carried out over the last 10 years, but they've typically been quite scattergun because there's been a lot of different messages out there about organics and recycling. We can now identify, our biggest issue is organic waste in red bins. I think we should focus on that. And then once that one has been addressed, then we can move on to some of those more fine-tuned messages about recycling that can help increase that recycling rate.
My last question to you is about the hard waste bookings. I made one myself, so this comes from personal experience. I have to say it was very well managed by East Waste. I had far too much gear at the start, only had half at the end, and so I didn't go over the limit. So, but I think it might have been Councillor Davis that put that in many years ago to have one hard waste a year. My question to you is that once a year or once a financial year that you're allowed to have a hard waste collection? Perhaps Alan knows the answer.
Through the chair, that's a very good question. I think it's every financial year, but I'd have to, Alan. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, I have a concern concerning the chart on page 195 on hard waste, where it seems that most of it is going to waste to energy. And we talk about the circular economy. We used to have a really good circular economy. In Beaumont Ward, we used to put our hard waste out on the curb, and then people from Burnside Ward would come and drive up and say, "What are you chucking that out for? I'll have that." So I think I thought that was actually a better use of our hard waste than burning it. I know Councillor Davis has also said they do things differently in Canberra, which we all knew, but, they have a big warehouse where hard waste goes to, and they sell it to people. That's got to be better than just burning the stuff, hasn't it?
They dump concrete on our version at the same time as they're here.
So that's just my I'll vote for the motion, but it's my observation that you could do better.
Councillor Henschke.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you through the chair. We could have a shed, put all the good stuff for sale. Anyway, question please to the administration is, seriously, how other councils, big councils, measure the contribution to greenhouse gases of their tonnage, daily tonnage? Is that something City of Burnside can do as well? Look at its tonnage of of garbage, and say, well, that's 2% of City of Burnside's greenhouse gas emissions. I don't know if that's part of the future strategies that we have to look at the big picture.
Through the chair, yes, it's certainly something we could calculate. They're quite complex calculations. You need to account for things like waste going to landfill and how much methane's escaping, how much is being productively used to create energy from landfill. You need to think of transport emissions. It's great to see that East Waste have just recently ordered an electric truck to reduce their transport emissions. You need to think about all of the processing of recyclables and how many emissions there might be there. So there's a whole range. So it's quite a lot of work to calculate emissions from waste management, but it's certainly something that could be done, and it's something that would assist in understanding the overall carbon footprint of the council.
And maybe
could be addressed in the environmental strategy.
Local government association could help. That could be useful for all councils, perhaps. Okay, and the question I had was from a resident here. The resident, when we had to increase rates for the the red bins, they were quite happy to pay more on their rates for that, but they were very concerned as to whether or not all their recyclables were in fact going to be recycled and not going to hard waste. Can I just confirm that, please? Thank you.
So we've actually just received information, through the chair, we've actually just received information from East Waste to advise that the issue around SKM, which is the one that's been in the media recently, that since September 2018, no recycled material has been going to SKM. All that material has been going to the MRF on the northern side of the city. So the issues that are currently in the media around the stockpiling of recyclables is not one that affects the constituent councils within the East Waste because of the actions they took at that time.
Councillor Hugh?
I have a question in regards to paragraph 22 with respect to the ATCOL hard waste. There was mention around the shopping centre displays. Was that driven by KSAB or by the City of Burnside?
Through the chair, that was driven by the City of Burnside. So that was some funding that was put aside by council last financial year to do some hard waste, some promotion of the ATCOL hard waste service, and they were the two actions that were taken: the door stopping and the promotion in the supermarket.
Following on from that, I was wondering whether in this next financial year there would be a similar approach taken, but rather than just looking at hard waste, whether there would just be a proactive approach, I guess, in educating the community through some of those steps in waste management in general rather than hard waste management.
Yeah, through the chair. So the money that's been set aside for the initial actions under the new environmental sustainability strategy has been earmarked for a waste management project focused on engaging directly with residents about management of green organics in their waste bins.
Excellent. I have one final question. In regards to the organic bags that residents can now purchase, are they available from anywhere else other than the Civic Centre during office hours?
Through the chair, the bags are available from supermarkets, can be purchased online, but they're available for free up to 2 bags, so 2 rolls per resident per year, per household per year, sorry, from the Civic Centre.
But only during office hours?
But only during office hours, yes.
Okay. I don't even use them. Oh, you don't? I know you don't need them. I'm just asking the question whether accessibility is an issue for people who work.
Councillor Turnbull.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor. My question, I don't know if it's the right forum, but I'd like to ask if the administration could start pushing for the deposits on wine bottles. Now that went through the LGA annual meeting and it got voted out. But if we keep pushing it, if you keep writing letters and pushing this, that will make a lot of difference to our waste, to our recyclables, especially in this area. Sorry.
Did you want to comment on that? Thanks, Phil.
Through the chair, the state government did do a consultation about the container deposit legislation during this last financial year. I think it's noted in the report. And the council did make a submission that supported the inclusion of wine bottles in the CDL scheme. And I believe that there were quite a number of submissions in that area, although the state government hasn't announced that it will move in that area yet. It's currently assessing that.
So if we keep plugging it, it may happen.
Yes,
thank you.
And we have.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Hugh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question. This is quite a general query. There was talk about prioritising, certain initiatives, and you talk about, reducing organic waste in red bins as a priority. When you're making a priority, is there a sense of there's other things that not being neglected, but there are other things that are quite worthy of being done that aren't able to be done because of, staffing levels in your area or, limitations in the department or stuff like that? I mean, are there... Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Through the chair, there's always more we can do. I think the opportunity comes for that conversation when we discuss the refresh and review of the environmental biodiversity strategy as it was. The opportunities and activities that we've identified for this year were ones that had been well tested and provided good outcomes that we already knew we could achieve, which is why we prioritised those initially. But yeah, through the debate and the discussion around that new strategy, that'll inform that answer in terms of resources, priorities, plan forward.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you,
I had
Ma'am.
no idea this was going to be so many people speaking.
Waste, it's a very important
Oh,
issue.
yes.
I'm going to speak for the motion that the report be received. It's a great report, but I thought I'd like to take this opportunity to embarrass also Dr. Raitman and congratulate him on his recent award as the unsung hero of South Australian science communication. So congratulations on that.
I just said, is it too late to get that in the Focus magazine? But congratulations. I'm sorry you had to stay longer. We thought you were letting you go home earlier by Councillor Cornish deferring the climate change till next time. But all right, so those, do you wish to speak again, Councillor Piggott?
Absolutely. Actually, I just wanted to say, just Councillor Turnbull's question about the wine bottles. The East Waste put in a submission to that consultation as well, and the recommendation from East Waste was to have put wine bottles under the container deposit legislation, and also to increase the 10 cents up to improve how many containers we actually get back in. So East Waste also went that direction. So that's what I want to say. So thank you for the discussion. I'm glad I pulled it. Yeah.
Just have a quick comment. How do we, I was at the Glen Osmond depot just recently and there were some people ahead of me who didn't know about no longer dropping them off there. Is there a way that we could inform our community a bit better or more about that? Or whether they were able to give them alternative opportunities, because I was just concerned those people were going to drive off in their cars with all that e-waste on board, and I always have this fear of it being dumped in a gully on the way up the hill. So that was just a question that I wanted to ask before I put it to the vote.
Through the Mayor, the information's available on the council website, and also the customer service team are aware, and I do ask people who come to the depot with e-waste how they found out about the service, and they find out through the customer service team and through the website and through Glen Osmond Recycling, so they are passing that message on. Yeah, and I have had conversations with them about that.
Okay.
And we don't have any increase in illegal dumping that I'm aware of in e-waste, so I'm not
very
sure that it's a concern.
comprehensive answer to my question, but that just was my concern. Is I didn't listen in to the conversation, but I saw people and heard people concerned about, oh, you don't take the stuff anymore. So anyway, to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hands. I'm sure it is unanimously carried. Now, subsidiaries, would we have to do motions on these? We've got nothing in there. Nothing. Mayor's report. Someone like to move the Mayor's report received? Unless anyone's got any questions. Councillor Jones, thank you. Councillor Cornish, seconded. All in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Reports of members, delegates and working parties. They are up and on the screen at the moment. Council correspondence, we have none this time. Now, sorry? Oh yes, you do.
Thank you, Worship. Just under memorials, I think it's important that I raise it that we lost a colourful character in the last few months, and only two of us in this room would know who I'm talking about, and that's Jane and myself. But John Lewis passed away. What? Oh, sorry, I'm Barry, yes. But John Lewis passed away recently, and for those of you who don't know him, he was certainly a very colourful character. He did gain some notoriety in the local media as Burnside's famous sandwich board man. And it's interesting just to sort of reflect on him, because just to draw you a picture, for about 3 to 4 years, about 2 hours before every council meeting, he'd walk up and down Greenhill Road and Portrush Road with obviously a massive sandwich board sign, front and back, with whatever the topic at the time was. It was the CEO and Chelsea and all that kind of stuff. So he did that every council meeting, and then of course would attend the council meeting itself with the sandwich board and any other special events that we had as well. So, and one I can reflect on that was a little bit funny at the time, I suppose, was the elected members had their Christmas dinner at a restaurant, and with other attendees, of course. And there he was walking up and down the front of the restaurant with a sandwich board. So it was a little bit strange, but funny thinking about it. So look. In conclusion, nice guy. Didn't live in Burnside, but had a huge part in the Burnside Council over that period.
His sign usually said honk if you like or dislike something or other.
Yeah, those sort of things, yeah. So we probably disagreed on virtually everything, but we were always friends. In fact, he even set me up on a date once. So there we are. So rest in peace, John Lewis.
Thank you, Councillor Carbone. And I appreciate that you did want to mention that last council meeting, and it was more appropriate that you kept that till tonight, so thank you for that. Other business? We have only confidential items to go now, so we need a motion to move into confidential mode. Councillor Cornish, seconded Councillor Dawes. Those in favour? Those against? Carried, but not unanimously.